And with me today is Joan Milliman from the Roberts Rules Study Club. They're going to be having their meeting coming up on the 11th of May. So welcome. Always good to see you, Joan. And today we're talking about committees, but the committee of a whole.
Right, and this is not committees, this is the whole assembly.
Okay.
For example, it would be the whole board.
Mm-hmm.
And they decide they go into committee mode. Now, when you're in committee mode, you can speak more in debates. You know, usually we're limited to speaking twice.
Right.
But when you're in a committee, you can speak as many times as you can be recognized, provided someone who has not spoken at all has gotten the floor.
Okay.
So it enables the group to delve into an issue more thoroughly, but as a whole group. And you'd think, well, why don't they send it back to committee? Well, that may take a lot of time, and it may not be necessary to do that. So, for example, if we were to be approving bylaws, that's a pretty hefty thing to look at. And it's already been through committee and chewed off over and so on, but there's maybe some problem that the whole board is having problems with.
Right.
So someone says, well, I move that we go into committee of the whole. So that means that if you do the committee of the whole, then the chair steps down, gives it to someone else so that he or she can debate.
Okay.
And you can only talk about one issue, and that issue is stated in the motion.
Okay.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, but this has to be in a separate committee, or can it be done in a normal meeting, or what?
It's done in a normal meeting.
Okay.
It's just that the meeting changes from being, say, the board of directors to now committee of the whole.
Okay.
So it's like putting it back into committee, but it's just that everybody there, all the voting members, are now part of that committee.
Okay.
And it's not a separate group anymore. They are the committee. And like committees, as I said, they have the freedom to speak more than once. Also, the secretary of this committee will take notes on the committee, but those notes will disappear once the committee's done its work.
Okay.
Now, the work is whatever the board has decided this committee needs to do on one thing, and then they make a report to the entire board, and the board votes on the committee's recommendations, on their own recommendations.
Right. It seems rather redundant.
It is. But there are other ways to do it. And I just, you know, this is, the thing with Robert's rules is, as we've all found out, it's very formal at times, and using a committee using this kind of approach is important. A more modern approach is informal consideration. So you'd move to have informal consideration, and you'd have the same advantage of being able to talk more than once, but you'd keep the same chair and the same secretary.
Okay.
And they'd make the notes from this little talk. It's more than a talk, but they make the recommendations.
Okay.
Put them out. And those would, however, in the informal consideration, those notes would become a part of the meeting.
Okay.
Now, in committee of the whole, they don't become a part of the meeting. That committee makes recommendations like any committee, and those recommendations are brought before the assembly.
Okay.
And they vote on them.
Right.
So it's all, and there's a third one that you need to hear, is called the quasi committee of the whole. And that just means that the chairman does not step down. He stays the chair from the regular meeting and is now chair of the committee of the whole. And the same with the informal consideration, the chair stays the same. So getting in and out of these things is not so hard. You just change to one of the three. It has to do with why would you use committee of the whole versus quasi-committee versus informal consideration. It has to do with the size of the group. The large group would use committee of the whole.
Okay.
And that's not us. Our boards are small.
Right.
So we would use either the quasi-committee of the whole if we need that, or just informal consideration.
Okay.
Now that committee can't appoint a subcommittee, and they have to follow generally the rules of the committees, but the things they can't do, and that is they can't stray from what they've been assigned to do. Now most of our committees are doing many things,
Right.
but related to one topic. You know,
Right, yes.
for example,
Yeah.
communications is related, all related to communications.
Yeah.
But here you might be talking about an amendment to a resolution that you couldn't figure out without a lot of talk.
Okay.
So that's kind of what it's about.
All right. And I guess it's rare that this is ever
It's
done.
very rare.
Yeah.
It's just if you may find yourself starting to get into a debate that it may go on, and then it might be important to use that time to look at it a little more thoroughly.
Mm-hmm.
Then you go into this informal consideration or quasi-committee of the whole, so that those things can be resolved in the session rather than having to send it back to committee,
Okay.
which could take another month or so
Right.
to get finished. So,
Okay.
and hopefully it's not something that can't be resolved.
Yes. All right. So that's something that, as you said, can be done. It's not usually done, but at least not here anyway.
No, we don't need it. We've got a lot of great committees that work very hard, and
Yeah.
usually by the time their recommendations come to the boards, they're pretty well set.
Okay. All right. Very good. And again, your meeting is going to be on May 11th, which is Saturday at 9 o'clock in the Towers Key Club. So if anyone would like to come by, they can.
Yeah, come on and find out more about Committee of the Whole.
All right. Very good. Joan, thank you.
Thanks,
Good
Ken.
to see you.
My
You take
pleasure.
care, and we'll be right back.